So I have to ask you about one of my favorite subjects, and I think it's one of yours too. The big thing that made me a fan of you in the first place. I mean, you kill every cosplay you do, but you particularly kill all the X-Men characters. Like, I'm not even gonna try to name all the ones you have. Like, I was just going through your Instagram feed trying to refresh my memory. I'm like, dang, I forgot that she did Shard, Bishop's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Megan. I'm pretty sure a lot of people do. People don't remember her. Um, Three different versions of Psylocke, I think, at least. A couple of versions of Storm, Polaris, that Havoc, Jennifer. What
Yes.
drew you to X-Men in the first place?
Yeah, let me just. Oh god, it's just. I saw your shirt. So, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
I have I have an X-Men poster in the living room, but in case our little prince decides to wake up and start crying, that would get recorded on tape. So I was just like, yeah, let me not do that. But yeah,
yeah,
so
the beginning of the X-Men. So they were my first comic love. Like I knew of Spider-Man. When I think of like my earliest memories, like 5 or 6 years old, like I remember Spider-Man. I was like, oh, like I know who he is and like what he's about. And I'm like, but these other ones. But I'm like maybe like 8, and I just loved the idea of people that within their own minority group were all different from each other,
yeah,
and they were different from the world as well. And those types of not always struggles, pros, cons, those types of stories that come from diversity
yeah,
are something that just hit home to me. And there's something that is so great about storytelling that can reflect or be a metaphor for real life
yeah,
situations, but also still be fantastic superhero stories at the same time. So there's a great levity that you get with the X-Men. There's a lot
yeah.
of like privilege, fear, ability, acceptance, self-acceptance, and
Yeah,
all of those are just excellent story narratives, and you can take a lot from it personally.
yeah, yeah. Wow, it's funny. As soon as you said privilege, it reminded me of how a couple of weeks ago I was reading up on all the classifications of mutants. Like you got Omega, Alpha, Beta, and some of the ones that don't get mentioned a lot, like Delta, Gamma, Epsilon, and like I just thought of from Epsilon all the way up to Alpha. Like they basically say like Alpha is the ones who their power is powerful. That was redundant. But they actually look, they pass for human. Whereas on the very far other end of the spectrum, you got Epsilon, who they don't look human at all, and their power sucks. Like say Beat, or pretty much like 90% of the moralized. Like they can't pass. So like a lot of the X-Men, basically, even though they're outcasts, they do have privilege in the fact that if they wanted to, they could just choose to not be part of anything and just live their whole life and not ever have to be part of the struggle. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm like, wow, that's a whole nother level to this that I didn't even think of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
Oh
yeah,
god, I could take it
yeah,
until the said cows come home. But again, that's just what makes it such an incredible story. Like even the most surface level versions of that are still just like you can't really think of life in this way where like let's just look at like so Jean and Scott. Okay,
right.
so they look human. It's like, but at the end of the day, like all it takes is one slip of his glasses,
Hmm.
and it's like to live with that fear. It sounds like okay, it's a whatever thing. Just keep your visor on, and then it's fine. So I am actually almost legally blind. Um,
Really?
yeah, I wear contacts and on the daily, and my vision is incredibly terrible. And I was talking when all of this stuff was happening with COVID. I was like, oh, I'm so glad that I was stockpiling my contacts. Because I was thinking, I was like, if there was something that ever happened out in the world and I couldn't see, like that would be a huge problem.
Yeah,
and that's the thing that like I worry about. And with Scott's scenario, it's almost like just the opposite. It's like, well, if I don't have this, it's like I'll be fine, but everyone around me, like having that responsibility of like you could potentially kill people just by a fluke accident.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
wow. It's crazy how that actually shapes much of his character, much of who he is, because like he's always so afraid of hurting somebody. Like I remember before I even knew what X-Men or what that universe was, I was reading one of my uncle's comics, and it turned out to be an issue of X Factor, and I think Cyclops had shot an optic blast and it bounced off several things and it hit somebody or something by accident, and he just kind of freaks out. So again, back then I had no idea what I was looking at, but it did stick out in my mind. I'm like, oh, I remember that now. So just that he always lives with that, and people don't know. People crap on Cyclops. I'm Team Logan all day, every day, right? But people gonna put some respect on Cyclops' name. Like people don't realize just how good of a leader he is, and really just how powerful he is. He is holding back all the time. He's never not holding back. So the fact that he could really trash some people who everybody else thinks is like way above him, I'm like, y'all gonna give him his due.
Yeah, and I'm of the same camp. Like at the end of the day, I'm just a Boy Scout, but have its way better, but that's just my biases. But it's like I still recognize that type of burden and weight that you carry, that you always have to be on.
Right.
And I would put it's a little bit easier, but I'd put Rogue in that same category. All you have to do, there are no high fives. There is no, oh man, you see someone hurt, crying. It's like you can't. It's like okay, if you're
social distance, I can't talk today. Social distance champion, basically.
Whoever I saw that artwork and I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
God, yeah. And on that same note, it's like if you can't be touched, but yet you're in love with someone who is very touchy, mon ami. It's like, okay, that would be a different type of personal struggle. It's like, okay, we're just hitting like surface level heavy hitters that everybody knows, and it's like what they do, but it's like really just think about it. Think about being at the mercy of something that you can't control.
Yeah.
And you could hurt or kill people. It's like, that's a weight.
I think you might, depending on your answer, you might have actually answered this already, but who are you drawn to the most out of all the X-Men?
It's really a day-to-day thing. It's what about what story arc is happening where. Sometimes it's teams, are individuals that really stand out in a certain run. I'd say for right now, because I'm reading the House of X Powers of X.
Oh, nice. Run.
And right now, Charles. I mean, there's a lot, and he's one of those characters that to people who aren't huge fans, like they know of him and the thing, wheelchair, all that.
Yeah, nobody names him as like their favorite X-Man. Like they know him, like he's the man, but nobody's like, that's my man though.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's literally it. Rereading this, or not rereading, but just reading this is having me rethink a lot of Charles mindsets, his goals, and then it's so hard because I really love Magneto too. Both of them, their dynamic is incredible. What did you think of Legion, or have you watched it?
Oh, the show. I haven't got a chance to watch the show yet. I'm intrigued by it because Shadow King is one of my favorite villains, and just seeing that he was in it, I'm like, oh, I'm a procrastinator by nature, so like I eventually want to get into it, but that's what makes me want to get into it, just seeing how they interact. Because I remember in the past few years, I basically have gone back and read all the stuff that came before where I came in at, because I kind of came in right before the whole blue team gold team split there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so like I read from, actually I went all the way back to, I mean I do have the Dark Phoenix saga, but officially as far as like continuously reading, I started from the fall of Mutant Massacre all the way on up. So basically I got all of those issues. So I ended up reading the Muir Island saga.
Okay.
So yeah, so I had seen an issue there. Like a friend of mine had shared with me a comic, and it was the one where Rogue had just beat up a strong guy, and she's in the shower like, what the heck's going on? Like everybody's so violent, but I feel like I like it. And then the Shadow King comes, and I was like, what? How is she making out with what the heck? So that was I was like, what is this dude doing? So it was always this kind of weird fear, weirded out, but I kind of like him kind of thing with the Shadow King. Just seeing how feared he was. Like, dang, this dude is a threat. Like, we need to, like, I guess more of like a love-hate kind of thing with him.
Yeah.
I'm going around your question. Yes, I haven't seen Legion yet, but it is on my list there. Now, I take it you've seen it already, right?
It's incredible.
Incredible. Okay.
I'm taking in everything that you're saying about Farouk, and you will not be disappointed in any way.
Okay. Oh, I meant to. Okay. I take it you've seen X-Men Apocalypse, right?
Yes.
Did you get any Shadow King vibes from Apocalypse?
No, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but his focus was more global instead of individual, and I think that's how I keep the two separate. Because I know sometimes trying to personify a character like the Shadow King when he's not in a mortal presenting form,
right.
Or Apocalypse. Now a lot of people were mad at it, and it's like, well, what do you want him to actually look like? If he looked exactly comic accurate, it would be ultra stupid in a live action movie. True.
So,
yeah, I think they did as good as they can. There were other elements of the movie that are worth dissecting more so than just the way Apocalypse looked, or his I almost want to say like his environment, how he acts, how people act around him, because that can shape a villain. Especially like if you have a weak villain, that means you have weak heroes.
This is true. Yes.
I'm a pro villain person. So I like the hero's motive is always the same, to stop them. But the villain could have 800 different types of motives.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because with villains, like, especially when you got those villains where it's not so black and white, where it's a little gray. Like, that's why I love the change the subjects here real quick. I love the Saw series, being a horror fan, because like Jigsaw will make you like him. Like, his method of doing what he's doing sucks, but the reason behind him doing, I'm like, oh, I can get behind that. Not the way you handled it, but I can get behind that. I mean, with Magneto, it's like he just wants what's best for his people, and he's tired of taking people's ish. You know what I mean? So, like, and then you get even Killmonger. Like, you can understand why he did what he did. So, like, you're wrong, but you're also not really wrong. Like, you're right about what you're right about why you're wrong, or however you want to say that. But yeah, coming back to Apocalypse, like, I mean, I did when I first saw how the the preview pictures and everything, I was like, why do we have Ivan Ooze and not Apocalypse? I mean, I eventually warmed up to it, and I like what they did with him, but I hate it. I love Oscar Isaac. I love him as an actor and as a person. I just didn't think he was right for that part. Like,
that's fair. And same, I like him too. It's just,
and Apocalypse sounded like Stewie Griffin a few times. He was sounding like this a few times, and I was just like, and I'm probably just spoiled by X-Men the animated series. I'm like, if you don't sound like him, I don't. Like, yeah, that's what I'm basing it off of. And it's just even without that, I'm just like, I was not afraid of him the whole time. You know, take away how he looked, take away that, you know, he never transformed into a giant mutant except for on the I don't even know if you want to call it the astral plane, I guess. Okay, that's why I asked that question in the first place. There are a lot of things about Apocalypse that I felt were Shadow King characteristics. The first person he interacts with is Storm. Shadow King and Storm. They're in Egypt.
Yeah.
Cairo. And he was able to just like the Shadow King can just influence you just by being around you. All of a sudden you feel like, oh, I'm with him. And then the whole thing where when Professor Xavier tried to reach out to him and he's like, oh, now that you've linked up my mind, now I got connections to everybody on the planet. That kind of reminded me of the Muir Island saga, how like he had this global hate thing going on. And then that final battle where it's him and Professor X battling in their minds. And I'm just like, that screams out Professor X and Shadow King battling on the not the shadow plane, the astral plane. And then Jean having to come save him in that mental battle. I was just like, why do I feel like I'm watching him fight the Shadow King and not fighting Apocalypse? So I feel like I might be stretching it. I might be the only person that picked up on it, but that's what screamed out to me when I saw it.
I think, now that I am thinking about it in terms of not just what the movie is presenting to you, but just in general, like the character, I do agree with you. I think the Shadow King is a true manipulator and definitely a cerebral villain versus more often than not a physical villain like Apocalypse. And you know why I think it went it did, but it's easier to showcase a mutant power that can just be acted out versus something that has to be hair, makeup, prosthetics, special effects. Yeah. You know, I think their budget wasn't it wasn't made for that, and it's upset they don't want to invest in the X-Men now that Marvel Studios has it again. We'll see, but
yeah, and that was my explanation for a few other things that I didn't like with the movie. Like I didn't, and maybe I missed something in some old comics that I didn't get a chance to read, but I didn't think that Apocalypse gained powers from the people who his essence got put into, but that's how the movie explained it in the beginning. So I was like, I'm rationalizing it in my head, same conclusion you came to, budget. They don't have time to explain the whole like celestial ship thing, him having the techno-organic virus, all this other kind of stuff. So I'm like, maybe that was their shortcut to have him to show why he's so powerful without going through that whole backstory. Because otherwise, there's a whole lot of stuff you got to go into, and they probably didn't have time. They probably didn't have time and probably didn't have the budget for it. So I was just like, okay, that's probably why they did this. So I'll shut up, you know.
Which in turn gives me sour grapes because I'm like, how is it that we have had 3 different Spider-Men in the last 10 years, but we can't have somebody give the X-Men outside of Logan? Logan was fantastic.
Yes.
Logan is up here and talk.
I almost cracked a tear at the end of that one. That's how good it was.
Yeah, I'm steeled like a lumberjack. that one got me. That was
Yeah.
but fantastic movie all the way throughout, and it's like, okay, yeah, this warrants emotion because it's not some typical thing that I can see coming a mile away. Not just because I already know the story of these characters, but just because a certain studio is putting out, here's the spoon here. Okay, here you go. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you can make something for a broad audience that is knowledgeable about a character, moderately knowledgeable, or completely a blank slate.
Yeah.
And still tell something effectively, and that's a good story doesn't need to be complicated to be good. It just needs to be told in an intriguing way that engages people.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I feel like, and this is my gripe with Transformers. Like Transformers, G.I. Joe, X-Men were like my top fandoms, and like I get that things are going to change. Things always change across mediums, and that's one thing that helped me come to grips with the first 3 X-Men movies, because I love that we had the X-Men movies, but I was pissed off that so much got, why is this the way, why is this way, why did they change this? But I eventually came to the conclusion that every single thing that has ever been in more than one medium has changed. You're gonna like some changes, you're not gonna like other changes, so be happy with the ones you like and suck it up on the ones you don't. That's what I have to tell myself. But yes, with Transformers, I hated how these changes for no reason. We got these new fans. I'm like, the new fans don't know no better. So why do you feel the need to change it for them? You're changing it for them and then spitting in the face of people who've been with it the whole time. And again, you're not going to make everybody happy with every change. Like, I was fine with Optimus Prime being a not cab over engine truck and him having the flames, but that pissed everybody else off. I was fine with Bumblebee being a Camaro that pissed other people off. You're not going to believe a Volkswagen Beetle in that role in a new modern movie. That's not going to work. So yeah, coming back to X-Men, because I could go off on this other tangent way down here, and I'm gonna say that for another video. But yeah, so like you said, you can there is a way you can do it for new fans, but also keep the old ones and tell a good story without beating the newcomers upside the head with stuff they don't care about yet, but also not pissing off the old fans. Like, dang, I was waiting to see this thing on screen, and you took that from me. But yeah, so I'm with you on that.
Yeah, well, because what happens is you end up alienating both audiences.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Whatever dingbat you listen to market research says, we need a character like this, and he'll be relatable. And it's like, that was never in point A, and point B doesn't matter. They don't know, so why?
Exactly. Yo, speaking of which, how did you feel? Like, did you know about how Bryan Singer, I guess, the director of the first 3 movies, that he was on record saying that he told the cast to not read any comics because more or less, I'm paraphrasing him, but saying that he felt his vision was more important than the actual like story or like whatever was already established.
Yeah, like something along the lines of like basically like a conflicting vision, and I just want you to have mine, basically.
Yeah.
But your vision came from something, Brian.
Right.
Like, that's just called, I'm just going to tell you what's happening outside. Don't look. I'm just going to tell you. Oh yeah, there's all this outside. I don't want you to see. Yeah, I don't think that's fair. I feel like if anything, to each actor, like if they're like, oh wow, I gotta start at 1963. What? Like, I can get that can be daunting and overwhelming, especially now where these movies are on their own genre now, and they know the type of following that it gets, and they know the type of audience and fan, and they'll get raked through the coals if they feel that like that representation isn't up to standard. And I can get that from just the artist or the actor's point of view. Like, okay, well, I just need kind of one thing to stick with. But as a director, I feel like you should never close off anything that could help someone's performance.
Exactly.
he's a little shady other areas too. So
Yeah, I heard. Yeah. Okay.
all
I'm
right.
with you. I think I know what you're talking about too. But I'm like, ugh, yeah. And for all of that, that's why because for the longest, I love Halle Berry, but I had this grudge with her. Like, how did you mess up my storm? But
Oh,
I finally let that go because I was just like, it's not her fault. It's the writer's fault. Same thing with Cyclops, James Marsden. Like, he would play a really good Cyclops if they would have written him properly. Like,
yeah,
he basically was just Cyclops was just there to be in Wolverine's way. You
yeah,
never you never would have thought he was the leader of the X-Men.
right.
He was just a pansy the whole time. Um, Storm being this mousy character, whereas the real Storm was like she was strong and
Commanding.
commanding, right? Without being a B word that I won't say. She commanded respect, but she could be kind when she needed to be. She was loving when she needed to be. She would put you in your face when she needed to be. Because if anybody that can put Wolverine in his place, like yeah.
We'll say,
So
what a witch.
right,
Sometimes.
right,
But
yeah,
when you can back it up and when you are
hmm
justified, you
yeah,
know, she's never had, anything major where it's been some selfish act or something that's been a gross misstep. If Storm ever did anything to hurt anyone, it was either A, an accident, or B, the Shadow King.
right. Or they deserved it, maybe. But yeah,
What happens
yeah.
when Smoove gets struck by lightning? God, terrible, terrible. And those bangs were.
Lord,
And
girl,
then second
no.
movie, he made her platinum blonde. I'm like, here's the thing about Storm. Two things. And as she is described, like early appearances, hair white as the
White.
clouds, eyes blue as the sky. Goes with
Yeah,
her lighting. It's a whole part of her aesthetic. Why are you gonna give her these platinum blonde dumb, like she looked like Jennifer Aniston hair and platinum blonde? I was like,
yeah.
no. But
Oh my goodness. And then, speaking of my favorite ladies, they did my girl Psylocke so wrong the first time.
uh,
I didn't even know that. Like, I just happened to pay attention to the credits, and I saw Psylocke in the credits. I'm like, it had to been homegirl that just got like, I saw her, and I didn't. I was like, okay, that's some random new mutant. And then all of a sudden, I see Psylocke in the credits. I'm like, that had to be homegirl who kind of walked out the shadow there. I'm like, those are the changes I don't like. I don't like when people just slap a name on a character and that person barely has anything to do with that character.
right.
That's the stuff I don't like.
If you're going to sideline a character, especially a fan favorite like Psylocke, she
Yes.
needs to look like on that one. She can be an exact dead ringer costume, or can you do like a slightly updated one? Because it'll be like, what?
Right.
You going like, what's the deal? So like, you could do an updated version, but basically keep the same thing, just make it a bodysuit and done. If you're going to show up, if you're going to put her name in the credits, let her look like somebody. And
Yeah. Don't make it be like, I think that was her. Like, make it obvious it was her. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I love Olivia Munn's version of it. Like that was dope. I like that one. I just hated how if you didn't already know who she was, you wouldn't have known she had psychic powers. You would have thought she just had energy weapons or something. Like you never really got, oh, she's a telepath out of this. She just has nice, pink energy things that she does.
Yeah, I think it's Caliban who's just like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, oh, my psychics. And then within that same shot, there's these other like people like, yes, this is what psychics do. So that
I totally I missed that. Like I heard him say it, but I didn't catch that other psychics were in there.
Yeah, because it's so, they're part of the drapery at that point, and then it's just kind of like, all right, well, we got to, zoom in on Betsy here and go from there. So it's difficult, and I think this may be where other teams, Avengers, Guardians, can be more successful to a less skilled storyteller because the cast it's much smaller.
Right.
If you have a good storyteller, you can have a group of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be a team. You can still build a good narrative with multiple characters.
Yeah.
So I really hope that their future is in better hands. I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening with the mutants. I think that's been tabled and pushed back.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I do think they're in good hands. Like I remember when the first Avengers movie came out. I loved it. I was like when a movie makes me want the DVD to be out the moment I leave the theater, then I know it was a good one. So I loved it, but it pissed me the heck off because I was like, this is what my X-Men should have been the first time.
Exactly.
So yeah, I was just like, we can't have nice things.
I know, and then that's when I go. I'm like, it's because we're mutants. They just want to keep us down. They don't want to give us.
You know, I've forever felt like the X-Men and the mutants were always like the minorities of the Marvel universe. Like,
yeah,
without getting too racial with that. But yeah, I think you probably get where I'm going with that. I always felt like they were the minorities. Like they just can't catch a break. They are like the Avengers and Fantastic Four are always getting the bigger spotlight. The X-Men, y'all are cool, but
yeah, there are like everybody else, a non-mutant character, like their rogues gallery are all people identifiable and caught. So with the X-Men, it's like, oh, some of them are good, some of them are bad, and so we're scared of them, and it harbors this fear, which again is another example of great storytelling, parallel to our world and otherwise, and that's what makes it so powerful. You know, you have someone like Beast, who is the, Harvard personified in a fuzzy blue body.
Yeah.
But no one will ever hear him completely because they're always looking at his claws,
Right, yeah.
And it's that type of trust and questions of true humanity that can always be raised. And I feel like with the movies, that's the same thing. It's like, oh, we can control this, we know this, and they all only ever have one villain. Even in the X-Men, it's usually Magneto, but they do a pretty decent job over the course of what the old and young Magneto, so it's about 7 movies.
Yeah.
Pretty wishy-washy in terms of like, oh, he's a hero, he's a villain and a hero. But there's always another element of the humans that also play like the back burner villain of each story. And there usually aren't two villains in any other story.
Right.
So I don't see, it's like for all of these reasons, the X-Men just have more complex issues going on and more than one plate that's spinning that keeps it so interesting.
True.